The deadliest predator in Africa is not the mosquito. It's not the snake, and it's not the lion. The deadliest predator in Africa is what you're seated on. It's the chair. Now, while we were fighting malaria, a silent killer crept into our homes and offices. NCDs, non communicable diseases, the likes of hypertension, diabetes, and high blood pressure. In sub Saharan Africa, when you say the word fitness, we immediately think of a gym membership that we cannot afford, or running on the treadmill whose electricity we do not always have. But I ask myself, has it always been like this? Amongst our ancestors, they moved for transportation, they moved for life, they moved to make a living. So, how do we address this problem? Let me take you back to KwaZulu Natal, the Amabutho Warriors. These were Shaka's premium regiment. They ran about 80 kilometers every day. And guess what? They had no Nike shoes or smartwatches to track how many steps that they've done. But well, they run on hills and thorns. On that same land, today, we recognize one of the most important marathons or ultra marathons, which is the Comrades Marathon. The Comrades Marathon is a British legacy. And my question to you is that the evidence of this marathon on that same land, does that mean that we're celebrating British culture, or is it evidence of what exists in our blood? Now I want you to take a look at the screen. I want to show you what this is costing us. When you're born in Nigeria, actually, let me start the other way. When you're born in Monaco, you expect to live up to 86. And when you're born in Nigeria, you expect to live up to 54. Ladies and gentlemen, 30 years. 30 years is not just a statistic. 30 years is a grandparent who does not get to meet their grandchildren. 30 years is a generation of wisdom that is deleted from our history and does not get a chance to enter the economy. Again, we must beat the drums. I ask you, we often say that we do not have the sidewalks of Switzerland or we do not have the parks of New York. But I ask you, how long should we wait for infrastructure to be built while we have people that are dying? You know, we come up and say that Africa is potential. And I actually hate that word. Africa is potential. And then we also brag and say that by 2050, 1 in 5 humans is going to be African. But what is that, or what is the use of that statistic if these people are going to be dying at 54? So we ask ourselves, how do we address this? While we were building Amafit, Amafit is like a dance tracking app. If you've used Strava, you go running and you track that as a run. With Amafit, when you go dancing, you can track that as a dance, as a workout. So while we've been building Amafit, we realized something very, very interesting, and the data was actually shocking. That first is volume. When you go dancing in one night, you could actually dance up to 15 kilometers. That's about 30,000 steps. For context, a marathon is 50,000 steps. I have a feeling some of you have danced a marathon, but you weren't sure that you have actually danced one. So what does this mean? And how is this like taking me closer to what I'm talking about? Second is the brain. Now, while you're running, it's a bit simple because running is linear. But when you're dancing, you have to engage parts of your hippocampus. That is, you have to recall different dance moves from like a different song. How do I do this? Shwalabam. How do I zip? Yeah. And at the end of the day, while you're doing that, you're engaging your hippocampus. And also, when you're dancing, you have to dance with people, you have to dance with someone around you. And while you're doing that, you're building cognitive load. You get? So, what the data shows and the studies are showing is that dancing is by far the most effective physical activity to reduce dementia amongst people. Can you imagine? So, in Africa, we're suffering from a problem called xenocentrism. Xenocentrism in psychology is where you prefer the things of others and the products of others over your own. And what does this mean? I mean, a victim of this as well. I would prefer running in the, I would prefer running on the treadmill than beating the drum. Or you prefer a peloton class to an exquisite circle. But I want to hold your mind for a second and build an imagination. Imagine an AFCON, but for dance. Not a talent show, but a sport. Like we bring athletes together in a stadium and they're competing, but this time they're competing in the Masai Adumo or in the Ivorian Mapuoka. You get? Because these are all different African dance moves that we have in our pattern. And what this means is that it calls for us to standardize African movement in a way that other people can actually consume it, because that's our thing. We need a solution that is actually native to us as Africans. So while you're still holding that imagination, I want you to ask yourself, what would Africa look like if we got 1 billion Africans to move 10 kilometers every day? No, no, no. That would be crazy, right? Let's get back into that imagination. What would it look like if we got 1 billion Africans to move 10 kilometers per week? We lower their blood pressure, but also we get closer to Ubuntu because what you're seated on, the chair, is comfortable, but it promises us an early grave. And when you go to beat the drum, we sweat a little bit, but it promises us life. Again, just a quick one is when you go to dance, and again, why I'm looking at dancing over like just running on the treadmill, when you go dancing, is you can't dance alone. On the treadmill, you can run alone. But if I go to dance a chitaguriro, that's like the cow dance, you get what I'm saying? When I go to dance a chitaguriro, I can't dance it alone. I need a partner. I need a community. I need someone that I can dance with. And while we're doing that, we're getting closer to Ubuntu. So, ladies and gentlemen, the solution is simple. Dance beats death. Thank you.